you'd like to learn a little about Eamon, please reach out to me or reach out to Bob. We're happy to connect with you. But for the moment, I'll just give you a quick little nutshell, our sales pitch, if you will. Eamon is a global alliance of 60 plus independent marketing agencies, and everything we do is designed to extend the reach for our members and their clients, whether through extensive industry expertise, knowledge of emerging trends, both global and local insights, market-leading creative, and results-oriented work. So our network of Eamon allies benefit from Eamon by leveraging several different things, such as shared expertise and knowledge, our shared resources and benefits, global strength, and much like you're on today, both personal and professional growth opportunities like webinars. So let Eamon and its member allies provide you safe harbor from the storm. We'd love to chat with you further. We encourage you to go to the website at eamonworldwide.com, reach out to Bob or myself. Thank you. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Christy. And I've said in past webinars, I spent 38 years at the 4As, and in my opinion, Eamon is the best network out there. So for those non-Eamon members online, if you want further information about Eamon, feel free to reach out to me. I know you've got my email address, or to Christy Anderson. And with that, good afternoon from New York. My name's Bob Linden, as I mentioned before, and I'd like to welcome each of you to today's webinar, which is entitled Design the Future, 10 Headline Trends Shaping the Advertising Industry. But before we start, some housekeeping. You can hear us, but we cannot hear you. If you have any problems viewing the presentation on your computer, it could be a firewall or security issue on your end, and you may need to contact your IT person. If you need to contact us via email, please send an email to bob.linden@highbartraining.com. We'll help you if you have any technical issues, and if you disconnect for any reason whatsoever, just go back to the email invitation and log in again. Our webinar leader today is Jordan Wade. I'll let Jordan elaborate on his background, and I know he has a lot of material to cover today, but very briefly, Jordan, who is based in London, is a creative agency veteran, Academy Award filmmaker, and an innovative entrepreneur. Jordan is also creator and curator of the PRECOG report, which is a bi-weekly tracker used for intelligence scouting. And Jordan will be elaborating on the PRECOG report. At the end of the webinar, we'll have a few minutes for questions. However, please feel free to send us your questions as we go through the session. On the webinar line with me today is Jeff Hiller, who will handle questions and answers. And now, from London, please welcome Jordan Wade. Okay, Jordan, you are live right now.
Okay, thanks. I hope you can hear me, because it kind of cut out there for a second. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Bob?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Just so I'm Jordan. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, originally. If I stayed in the family business, I would have been a third generation restaurateur. But however, I got into marketing, and I got into digital, and I got into all that fun creative agency stuff. And along the way, was lucky enough to put the Pixies original website together. I won a Student Academy Award for a film that I made, and I cut my teeth in brand experience and advertising at a company in London called Imagination, where they really kind of pushed the boundaries on everything. And what I do is I consult with businesses, and I'm an ex-creative director. And so I'm passionate about ideas. I'm passionate about collaboration and working with people. And I have something called the PRECOG report and methodology, which we're going to go through today. And the first bit is just what do I bring to the mix? I bring a mindset for everyone, to be entrepreneurs and culture activists and business innovators. And I really champion that. And then my experience is creative direction, really steeped in experience design and storytelling. And then finally, I'm very purpose-driven with everything that I do. And I really look at future trends and how we can track those for strategic planning and really kind of create a sustainable legacy. With that in mind, I wanted to start off with really creative people, because everybody here, you don't have to be a creative to be creative. I believe ideas come from everywhere. And I'm always about full collaboration. So whether you're account leads or business developers or strategists or production or anyone, it's just fun to be around really creative people. And I don't want us to forget that we are in the creative business, in the creative agency, and ideas are what it's all about. And so how can we really maximize these? And this is actually a chapter from one of my favorite books. There's a guy in London called Dave Trott. He's like the Don Draper of London advertising. And he has this book, and there's a chapter in it called Really Creative People. And I'm going to have a few excerpts from it just to set the scene. And in that, he says they're fascinated by new stuff. And that doesn't mean like new technologies. It means stuff they don't know, stuff that's new to them. And that's how we go around in life, being curious about everything. And like I said, Dave Trott wrote this book, and it's called Creative Mischief. I highly recommend it. He has a blog to follow too. They're very short and very, very, very full of information and ideas. And in this chapter, he talks about Paul Arden, who's the ex-creative director of Saatchi & Saatchi. And he was old and retired and lived close to Dave. And Dave's grown-up kids went to visit him because Paul Arden was the godfather to them. So you know how the advertising industry, it's all connected in one way or the other. And he said, the kids can come over, but you can come over if you bring 2 new things each. And he said, and they mustn't be to do with advertising. And I love that because he's about curiosity, about new ideas, doesn't need to be told something that he already knows. And then there's Carl Alley, and this is also in the same chapter, and I really liked how this resonated too. The creative person really wants to be a know-it-all, wants to know about all kinds of things. Goes on to say about ancient history, 19th century mathematics, current manufacturing techniques, flower arranging, hog futures, and the list goes on. He never knows when these ideas might come together to form a new idea. It may happen 6 minutes later, or it may happen 6 years down the road, but the creative person has faith it will happen. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to explore all sorts of areas which may seem out of our comfort zone or things that we don't look at, but that intersection is where ideas and new concepts and new ways of doing business come together. So let's begin. What we're going to explore today is, first, we're going to look at the current influences in our world. Then we're going to go to client and human needs and how we can create opportunity around it. And then we're going to look at the future trajectory of your vision as a business. And we're going to do this through trends and pattern recognition, through exploring possible futures, and through what I like to call prediction design. So first off, what do we mean by trends and pattern recognition? Well, they're always changing. And PRECOG really is kind of set for this notion of that we recognize things in our environment all the time. And so pattern recognition is this thing where, you've heard of it before, and it's where we see information out there and it's received, and we put it in short-term memory, and then for some reason it pops up in our long-term memory later. And that's what the PRECOG report does. It's very, very visual based. It's a headline and it's an image that you remember. And then precognitive thinking is this way that we relate to all the knowledge of future events. And it's also how we can start to apply pattern recognition. And so PRECOG, my PRECOG report, takes its name from that, both the P and pattern and the recog and recognition and precognitive thinking. So, but what is it? Well, the PRECOG report it's a set of 10 headlines because we don't have very much time. We're always busy. And PRECOG does the dirty work. It separates all the signal from the noise, filters over 1,000 articles a week, and then narrows it down. And it's always focused on innovation, design, sustainability, culture, social impact, and more. And it's collected for intelligent reports, workshops, PRECOG futurity labs, inspiration, everything. And these are what they look like down below. And if you count, it's been going on for about 3 years now. There's been over 1,100 days and counting, 124,000 articles filtered, 1,588 signals identified, and 78 reports published. And it only takes you 14 seconds. It takes you 14 seconds to look at one. I release it on LinkedIn so you can just like swipe by it really quick and increase your pattern recognition. Now we're going to do a deeper dive to go through these, and I'll explain it more, but I just want to show you what it looks like when it's on your phone. And it's on your phone, you open it up, and you'll see the PRECOG report, and it slides over each one. and you'll see, something about algae. There's something wooden there. There's something quick there. I don't know what this is, but don't worry, we're going to come back to these. But we're just kind of cueing our brain right now for stuff that's to come. And I don't know what it is, but God, a lot of it looks interesting. The images are really kind of cool. I don't know what's going on. I want to know more. And that takes 14 seconds. And then you can look back and say, oh, yeah, I wanted to see that thing on the algae tree, and I can go for a deeper read on that. But why do we do this? Why do we really expose ourselves with all of these things? Well, it's really important. And there's this old paradox where there's a person that has dropped their keys. And they've been the key paradox where they've dropped their keys and they're on their hands and knees and they're looking for their keys. And a good Samaritan comes by and the good Samaritan says, what are you doing? And the person says, well, I dropped my keys and I'm looking for them. And the good Samaritan says, oh, let me help, and gets down on their hands and knees and starts patting around on the ground, and then says to the person, like, whereabouts exactly did you drop your keys? And the person said, oh, see over there in the dark by the trees on the edge over there? That's about where. And the Samaritan said, well, why are we looking here, under this lamppost? And he said, oh, well, the light's much better here. And see, that's what we tend to do. We tend to look where the light is good for all of our ideas, where we're in our comfort zones, where we see things. And what we want to do is really look beyond the light. We want to see beyond the light. We want to look into the forest, look into the darkness, and don't look where the obvious things are. And that's what we're going to do today. Because if you look at the world and you look at all the knowledge in the world, you guys have probably seen this before, and if all the knowledge in the world fit in this circle, and I'm feeling really generous today, I'm going to say what you guys know is about this sliver here of all knowledge in the world. And that's being pretty generous. And then I'm going to say there's also what we don't know. And so we've got everything we know. And then for me, like everything I don't know, I don't know how to speak Russian. I don't know how to skydive. I don't know how to scuba dive. These are things I know I don't know. And so that's it. That's my knowledge section there. That's most people's knowledge section. Then there's everything else, which is what we don't know. It's the stuff that doesn't even register. And how do we get that? That's why it's so important to work in teams and work with different people and have different perspectives. And so that's what we do here. We start to explore this blank area here. And PRECOG, what it does is it starts to open up the blind spots, those areas that are just like things we never even would have looked at. And that's how we begin to look at trends and pattern recognition, just kind of exposing ourselves to these current influences in the world. Now, when we go deeper, we're going to look into how does it relate to client and human needs, and what exactly are we looking at, and how can we create opportunity, and how can we explore this with possible futures. So we had all these different patterns here. Now we can kind of take a breath and we can kind of look at them and we kind of see, okay, there's some interesting stuff going on here. I'm curious. I want to know more. And what we're going to do is explore the blind spots and the possible futures. Now we're going to take a breath. And let's say you flicked through your PRECOG report on your way into work if you're riding the tube or subway or in an Uber. And now, maybe you get to your desk and you want to dive deeper. And you look at it, and what you'll find here is that with the PRECOG report, it's very image and visual based because we don't have a lot of time to spend. And each image here, if you click on it, actually links to the article itself. So you'll be able to see, oh, there's something about this algae air purification trees, and I can go in there and I can really kind of understand more about it. Now, what I started with is just a challenge for myself and everyone, and it's the PRECOG report in the tweet. It's all 10 lines. I'm not going to read it to you, but it's just a fun little challenge putting it all there. But when we get into the meat of it, we start to see things. And this is one of the 10 that came up in the last report. And I look at this as the future of sustainability. And what we're seeing here is there's a studio called Ecologic Studio that turns algae into air purifying biopolymer trees. And you can see the references from DZ. Now, the only commentary that will be put on the PRECOG report is in the lower right-hand corner. It says the future of sustainability. Now, that's to start a conversation and start people thinking. It could be the future of algae, the future of green things, the future of trees. lots of different things. It's just to start a conversation. But when you click and you read the article, you'll start to see that, you know, this design practice turned algae into this biodegradable polymer where they grow these 3D printed structures, and it's all made out of this material. And this material also carries out photosynthesis. And what it does is it also can capture the carbon in the air. And so then it's recreated and repurposed into these biopolymer materials and everything. And the company that's doing this, Ecologic Studio, you know, their longtime interest has been in air purification power of algae. They've really been focused on that. And so they've come up with this, and it uses these kind of new photobioreactors. There's all this kind of like technology stuff, but it's interesting to dive into it. And you find out that they dry out the material. They can turn it into, dry out the product, turn it into a material or a food source. And it's amazing because it's all biodegradable as well, and it purifies the air, which is something that's really relevant. You know, how's it relevant to me now? Well, we just had, you know, all the Canadian fires disrupting the East Coast, and maybe there's something around air purification that registers on our radar when we're talking to clients. We came across this article, and you could link it to lots of different things, even things, simple things like ads about air conditioners at home or things like that. There's lots of different ways that this starts to connect in different areas. And it's all about sustainability, how we think of things differently. The next one, this seems very odd. This is a Finnish pavilion, which was at the Venice Biennale. And it's where they have architecture, all these architecture pavilions. And the Finns declare the death of the flushing toilet. And I was like, what does this mean? What purpose is this? And again, this is another sustainable stance in some regards. And it's also a focus on the future of technology, or I should say old technology. And what they were doing was raising kind of awareness around this. And the architecture pavilion that they built, the whole focus was on the death of the toilet. And that was in the middle of it. And they were exploring the fact that the world's most domestically, you know, developed economies in the world have old technology in the toilets that we have in our home right now, because they're responsible for 30% of all domestic water use. And it's literally flushed down the toilet. And so what they did was make a stance for it. And they talked about this through this journey of this, and if you go into the article, it's really funny because they have this mock display that begins with this archaeological excavation in the future where they find a flushing toilet. And they talk about how ridiculous it was that we just wasted all of this water and everything. And so it really just gives you time to think and time to really look at things differently with a different lens, and look at how this technology that we might have today could be something that we look at in the future and like, God, I can't believe we even have that. Just kind of like when we had Blackberries, couldn't live without a Blackberry back in the day. And now we look at it and it's a joke. And so it's just really interesting. It makes us look forward as well as backwards onto how we can look at technology, sustainability, and awareness. This next one is from Core 77. It's an interesting feed that I follow. And this is about Midjourney. Now, Midjourney, may or may not know, that's one of those AI design tools. And this person in Croatia is a director, a filmmaker, decided to use Midjourney and wanted to use it in an advertising sense in the way of creating an IKEA catalog, but wanted to have a different take on it. So what this person did was directed the RenderBot to create this catalog and make it feel like a fake bomb shelter furnishings by IKEA. However, he also added another filter to it and said, I wanted this to have a Wes Anderson vibe. So if you know Wes Anderson films, it definitely has that vibe. And so he crossed that with Wes Anderson, IKEA, and Scandinavian. And it's really interesting. And when you go into it, you can see all the different aspects that this was all done by AI design. And it's just amazing what the future of AI design really has in store for us. And so again, this has lots of different things that we can look at. And it's just a really good way to stay on cue and be able to talk to people about, yeah, I'm aware of Midjourney and what it does and the capabilities. Next, I'm talking to you about MIT Technology Review. They have these things where they've done these brain scans to translate a person's thoughts into word. You're like, how on earth am I going to use this? Yeah, and who knows? This could be something we use 6 minutes from now or 6 years from now, but it's good to have these things together. And I looked at this, and it's the future of ChatGPT in a sense, and we've all heard the buzz around ChatGPT, and we'll talk about ChatGPT later too. But this is a new brain-computer interface, and there's a lot of this going on. Elon Musk is doing a lot of stuff with Neuralink right now, and they're really looking at how they can record the brain. And the way they're doing it now is a very non-invasive technique. And they had the participants listen to podcasts. So the machine learning knew the words in the podcast, and they could pinpoint the different activities in the brain and where it could start to combine and translate words and thought and everything, and be able to, at the end of the day, translate thought. And what's interesting is this has some longevity to it too. They were talking about how by extracting words and phrases from this brain activity, this could one day help people who've lost the ability to speak. You know, if it's an injury that they might have had, or from a stroke, or conditions like ALS. So again, it's raising awareness in a completely different way, where before I read this article, I had no idea this stuff existed. And now I do. And if it comes up in conversation, the job here is to make everybody, a bit more knowledgeable, a bit more smarter in the room, and to be able to just kind of really, really participate greatly in a lot of the things that are going on out there. Now, the next one is from New Scientist. And this is genetically modified stem cells extend lifespan of mice 20%. This is fascinating. So, I mean, for me, the first thing I thought, I can extend the life of my cat or kittens and stuff like that. But obviously that has a longer impact, because what they're looking at is that this could soon be tested on humans. And it's some kind of genetically modified blood stem cell, which makes no sense to me because I'm not a scientist. But its treatments are for cancer and for aging, and they're finding that through the test that life is extended 20% longer. And they found that there's no negative side effects to date. So this is something to keep our eye on, especially as we have an aging population where we could be extending that even further, which has a massive impact in everything that we do in advertising and everything that we have going on in the future. The next one is from New Scientist, and this talks about stretchy electronic skin responds to touch and pressure like real skin. Again, I'm like, whoa, what is this? And then kind of thinking and reading the article, it's kind of the future of wearables here, because we have all of our Fitbits, all of our wearable technology. Where is it going? Where's the Band-Aid going to end up? Is it going to, be able to tell us more and be more diagnostic? But the test that's going on now, they have this eSkin patch, and what it can do now is convey touch and pressure signals to the brain. It can prompt you to move muscles. Again, this is something that can improve with prosthetics and things like that. So the science out there is really growing really fast. It's stretchy. It's non-invasive because it can wrap around the finger or arm, and it can convert all these signals and pressures to sensors in the brain, which is amazing. I don't know the technology behind it, but I'm just fascinated with this because, wow, what happens when we start to combine all of these things together? And it really gives us a rich future to play with. Now, this was interesting. This was from Flowing Data, and actually it was first published in the Washington Post. And this was the big debate, obviously, about the national debt that's going on. And it's really, really difficult cutting it. And everybody has an idea, right? Everybody knows what they would do. So what they've done is created this almost like they simplified the task, create a bunch of questions, yes or no, and it's kind of a Tinder style swiping game where you swipe left or right, and it allows you to adjust the debt, and you can see what you are. It's great. I mean, you can see if you're conservative, liberal, whatever, if you've increased it, and you start with inheriting a debt of $31 trillion. And by the end, if nothing's done, it's going to be 52 trillion by the end of the decade in 2033. So this is a lot of fun, and it's fascinating. I love thinking about just even that technology of it. I remember when LinkedIn was playing with that, where you had different contexts. You want to connect and left and right, and I liked all of that. I thought it was engaging way. It's always looked at as Tinder, which I think kind of can devalue it in some regards, because I think that the actual user interface is fascinating. And if we could use that for ideas, for pitches, for anything, and it really also talks about saving money, how we can save things differently and better. And that was like the future of voting or saving. And then we had something about sound vibrations encode or process data like quantum computers do. Wow, you hear about all this quantum stuff. I still don't understand it, but it's on my radar now. And what I found out, digging a little bit deeper into it, is apparently it's kind of the future of data storage in some regards. And by creating sound in aluminum rods of all things, these vibrations, they can somehow mimic quantum computing. And with that, the main takeaway is it's less fragile. Apparently, these quantum computers are really tricky to work with because of subtle disturbance in their environment, or everything can make everything go haywire. So they found something here which is about sound. So this could be about sound, the influence of sound, surround sound. There's lots of different ways where you can start to play with this. And we're starting to see that I didn't even know that quantum computing was fragile and that sound waves were more stable. And so it's informing me on something that I didn't know until I read this article, and maybe I'll be using it later. Now this, oh my God, this Binford's law, the unexpected patterns of numbers everywhere. And I looked at this first and I thought, this is weird. And a lot of these things too, I'm attracted by the image. We see this and we're like, what's this image and everything? And you dive a little bit deeper. And so what is Binford's law? Well, Binford's law, I'm not going to do it justice explaining it to you, but I will try my best. And it's this law that governs all the numbers around us. And what it does is they said, if you open up your favorite social media platform, and you note how many friends or followers you have, and specifically note the first digit in this number. So if you have 400 friends, the leading digit is 4. If you have 79, it's 7. And so this is what Binford's law apparently looks at, is that first digit. And then it says that what they did is they asked many people to do this, and they thought that the responses would be, you would get this range of 1 to 9. You're going to have a range of 1 to 9. But it didn't happen that way. Strangely, what they said is that they found out that there was a steep imbalance, and nearly half of the people have friend counts that begin with the number 1 or 2, which is very odd. And so what does this really mean? Well, 10% begin with 8 or 9. Remember, it's not about the how many friends you have, it's about how these numbers hit. And so what they do with this law apparently is they apply it for fraud detection, which that's amazing. I didn't realize that. They've looked at this and used this law for fraud detection from Greece, manipulating macroeconomic data in its application for the Eurozone. They've looked at vote rigging in Iran's election in 2009. And what they're finding about the message is that this organic processes that generate numbers favor these small leading digits, the first digit, no matter how big the number. It's really odd. And where naive methods, when you're falsifying data, do not. And so all these red flags would come up. And it's a fascinating article. But it is interesting with KPIs, with benchmarking. Are there ways that we can begin to is from Hypebeast, and it's the U.S. Supreme Court rules against Andy Warhol in the Prince case. And I didn't realize this, but the U.S. Supreme Court is all about copyright, and they're afraid this is going to have a massive ripple effect. And so what's happened here is that this case, he used different photographs, manipulated them, paid for it, but then became this big star and all of this. And so now it's like, how do you get the money to the people? Was it fair? All of this. And so they're looking at it, and it's basically been decided that copyright infringement has a lot more different aspects now. And this ruling was really difficult because you had a split, almost a complete split. Obviously, it wasn't 50-50 because it can't be in the Supreme Court. But you had Kagan and Roberts believed that the majority was wrong in its decision. And they were saying that Warhol is this towering figure in modern art, and that even his work with soup cans, Brillo boxes, Marilyn Monroe, Prince, turned something that was not his into something his own. And Warhol does not get credit for if he doesn't get credit for transformation of the copy, who will? And so what they're saying here is that we're in this imbalance about where copyright lies, and this has a massive impact when we start to look at like documentary films and all sorts of things like that, because filmmakers and entertainment business are all a bit nervous now because it can gravely affect source material that they've used before, something for all of us to be aware of, whatever industry you're in. So that's how the PRECOG report, you did the 14 seconds, but then you can go deeper and you can start to look at all the different articles that are available there. And you can see at the very end of it, we just do a recap of all the futures that you just saw. And then the very last page, the 14th page, there is a little Easter egg there, if you like that. It tells what music was listened to, and this one was William Onayabor. And then you have links to the PRECOG lab and stuff like that, which I'll share with you later. So, wow, this was a big section here. It was a lot for you to absorb, and I hope, all of you are still with me, because we're going to do something cool at the end. We're going to say, how do we use all this stuff? So right now, just to recap, we had all of these different things, from algae air purifying tree, which is the future of sustainability. We had, all this stuff about, this Brinford's law, and that could be the future of metrics and KPIs. We talked about the national debt, all these things. And you can see on the right, we have all these futures. We had left, we had all these signals or headlines. And if I slide those futures over, what does it mean at not a macro level, but a more micro level? Well, I'm looking at air purification, the needs and opportunities for others, or eco-friendly bathrooms, for example, or an AI new business team. Don't tell all the creatives, and I'm a creative. But I mean, God, that IQ catalog could put all the creatives out of business here. And so, a new business team could just have their own AI and just start doing everything themselves. There's, longer living pets, disposable wearables. Yeah, that's interesting. What happens when you peel off the skin? Can you just throw it away and have a new wearable? Think of the implications of that. And how we can look at all of this stuff. And with the last one, the idea copyright's interesting too. If you're familiar with NFTs, if you ever heard about that, that is about rewarding the original person that made that content. No matter how it goes up the chain, the provenance of it, they are still getting rewarded. And I think it's an interesting tie-in to that right now. Now, with all that being said, and I showed you all these things, I'm sure something's popping into your head and you're like, wow, I want to know more. That was really interesting. Now I don't want you to think. I just want you to pick your favorite one. And Bob, I think, is going to pop it up on the screen. And we're going to just have a quick check. There we go. And I'm going to give everybody 10 seconds. And it's not rocket science. It's just whatever pops in your head. It doesn't matter. It's just to get a feel for it and say, what was the one that, wow, that was interesting. I never knew that. And I'm curious about it. The polls are coming in. Excellent. Yeah, and there's no right or wrong here. The thing is just to see how things resonate with different people at different times, and to see that what others are picking too, because that's conversations you can have. Wow, why did you pick algae? Why did you pick national debt? And then you hear a different perspective you haven't heard from before. So I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to thank everyone for participating. And I think I have to do I hit share results, voice of God? Just hit stop sharing. There we go.
Share. The results are being shared.
Okay. Can I close it now? I'm going to close it.
Yes, you can.
Is it closed?
It should be closed.
Hopefully. There we go. Is it off my screen, off everybody's screen? Hopefully so. So now we're going to go to the next one, which is why think about the future. And it's really interesting. Why do we need to think about the future? I mean, think about the future. It's about innovating. It's what we do in this creative industry, this creative business that we are for our clients. It's about transforming how we think, how the customers think, how the clients think, how everybody thinks. It's about creating this map to the future and looking for new areas of opportunity. That's what all of us want. We're always excited. What's the next new? We can imagine and create the kind of future we want. And what we can do together is take the right actions to get us there. Because if we do this next week, there's going to be 10 different trends. It's not going to be the algae. It's not going to be Andy Warhol. There's always trends, and it's always changing, and it's always influencing everything that we do. So remember, the future either happens by accident or by design. And what we're doing here is we're choosing design. Why let it happen by accident to you? So let's go a little bit deeper. Let's design our future. The human brain, I love this quote from James Clear of Atomic Habits, if you haven't read it, but I love what he says. The human brain is a prediction machine. And what PRECOG does is it feeds your prediction machine. It really kind of gets you going. And what it does, it allows us to explore possible futures and to create these opportunities for client and human needs. Now, what does that really mean? Well, you've probably heard this before. And it's, the client says they want a faster horse, and this was the old Ford adage where he said, if I asked my clients what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And that's great. I mean, you're listening to what the client says and you're responding to it. Or you can think deeper and say, what did they really want? They didn't want a faster horse. They wanted a better way to travel from A to B. They just didn't realize it was a car. And that's what we have to do to help our clients. And that's why by looking at things like PRECOG and other trend reports and everything that's out there, I'm not the only one, just always being curious, stopping at shops that you don't, on the way home, all sorts of different things, just be curious. And that's where we really start to connect with what the ground intention is. And so we look at all the possible futures and we're creating new opportunities. I mean, now you have things that are developing, like Rolls-Royce is developing flying cars. This is amazing. So all this stuff exists out there. So this brings us out of the possible futures, and we could see all the different ways that we can look at everything that's going on there and take a pulse with just 10 different things and how varied they were. But these are all responses to clients and human needs and how they're creating opportunity and how we're exploring it. So we're going into the last part here, which is the future trajectory of your vision. And this is done through prediction design. Now, when we start to get deeper in it, we look, and the first thing is, the future's here, are you ready? And we're never ready. It's just happening, and it's happening, and it's happening, and it's happening. And we can't seem to stop it. It's always there. So at its best, future thinking is not about really predicting the future. Even said that's what I said we're going to do, but we can kind of do that. It's about really engaging people and thinking deeply about complex issues, imagining new possibilities, connecting signals and larger patterns, connecting the past with the present and the present with the future. And what this does is it helps us make better decisions to influence our future and better business decisions. And it's just a smart way to do things. And so that's what we're doing. And we're starting to look at how we can bring it together. Now, one of the things that is done is we run a thing called the Futurity Lab. And this is, I'm showing you a little excerpt from it. We're going to do an exercise from it right now. And it's great. I mean, you guys should just I'm going to show you how to do it. You guys do it and have fun with it because it's so much fun. I love doing these things. I love getting the most out of all the teams and everybody. So we do all these breakouts and I'm going to walk you through it. And so what we do, we're going to look at a little bit of it where we explore new possibilities using current trends. And it's an exercise that we do. We remind everybody, look behind the light, and also be sure to be in that area where you don't know it. Be uncomfortable. That's great. We do this exercise where we have everybody cross their arms, and you can be doing this right now. If you cross your arms the other way, and it's just like not right. And that's when you're in that zone where it's not comfortable. That's a good place to be. That's where everything happens. So we really want to remind everybody to be in that. And what we do is one of the things we look at is future scoping. And this is how we kind of train our brain. And you may have seen these future cones before. And really it looks at a lot of different aspects. So we have the timeline, so you can go to 0 to infinity or 5 years or 10 years. And as that, the cone expands, and we have different things. So we have the projected future. That's if everything just stays status quo. If we didn't have COVID, oh well, just status quo would have been great. Then we had probable futures and plausible futures. And those are where we usually make our business decisions, where we're gonna, how we're gonna project our business. Then you have these outside areas, which are these kind of possible futures, might happen. And my favorite is the preposterous futures. And that, if you think about it for a second, that's where your Elon Musks and all these people, Richard Branson, live, and they would just be like, don't know how to do it, but let's figure it out, and we'll do it, and it'll never happen. We'll never be, have space commercialization or things like that. And what it does, though, is it allows you to work backwards from it. And that's what we like to do. We're going to create some crazy stuff and work backwards from it. And it allows us to really train our brain to have a widened range of thought. And it reminds us not to sell the client the faster horse. And we really just want to maintain that area. And that's what we're going to do here. And so we're going to look at, prediction design. And like I said, this is by saying design, we talk about we can't predict the future, but we can influence it. So let's do that. Let's start to create that. And the way it works, and what I invite everybody to do after this, and I'll send stuff for you and all of that, you'll have your signals on the left, you have your futures on the right, and remember, you can say these futures are about anything. It could be the future of not AI design, the future of IKEA. Okay, great. Then what we do is we like to break people up into teams. So if you do any of these, grab some people and don't spend a lot of time. We do like 20-minute sprints just to kind of loosen everything up. And we give people some directions. This was something we did for the UK with a program called Better Future. And we were looking at what the UK, or we called it the next UK, will be known for in 10 years' time. So we had people work in teams. We had a brainstorm brief. They had to use 3 signals on the right. And then they had to design a new future based on those 3 signals. And it was in 10 years' time. So it's not tomorrow, so we can be a bit preposterous that way. They had 20 minutes. And the way they did it is this movie mashup poster. It's a fun way to kind of get things going. And I'll show you how that works. And we would have people pick the trends randomly. And so you can spin the wheel and pick the trend. And I think this was one of them here. Yeah, and you click it and you spin it. And I've set one up for everyone for the futures that we've looked at, and I'll show you that later. And then what they were handed out was a sheet, and on it were space for your 3 signals, your 3 trends. Then you had a headline, then you had a tagline, so with a catchphrase for it. And then you had a space for an image that kind of combined the 3, and you just gave a brief synopsis, usually like 3 bullet points or so. And with that, sometimes we'll do pre-printed ones. So this one, got a marshmallow exoplanet, large hadron collider, cost too much to run with energy crisis. And then these these cockroaches, robots that were fitted with lasers to kill, robots fitted with lasers to kill cockroaches. It's insane. But everybody, played full out, and they came up with 4 unique futures for the next UK. And it was just an amazing thing. And they did it all in 20 minutes. And so what we're going to do, so I can see that we're running short on time, is coming to the end. And so we're going to just play along all together here. And our brief is, what does the future of advertising look like in 10 years? Well, if I ask everybody that, you're going to look in the light and you're going to look at like, okay, this is what I know, this is what I don't know. And we're asking you, no. Let's look beyond that. So to do that, we asked PRECOG AI, and we thought, using a little bit of ChatGPT technology, we asked it to pick 3 trends, and it picked 3. And we asked it it had algae air purification, the electric skin, and gosh, Benford's law. Hopefully somebody can explain it to me. Hopefully ChatGPT can. And we asked them to combine these three ideas and tell us what the future of advertising looks like in 2033. So it did. And the first thing it did is it gave us a title so we can understand it. And the future of advertising, the title they gave for this concept was Eco Ads, the harmonious blend of nature and persuasion. I thought, oh, that's interesting. It's got my attention. What's the tagline? And so it says, where clean air meets captivating ads, advertising reimagined for a sustainable future. It's like, okay, wow. And just like all the craves are going, oh my God, you got to put us out of business. Yeah. And it's amazing what it can come up with. And then the synopsis, I want to know more. Eco Ads revolutionizes advertising by combining algae air purification, electric skin technology, and data-driven insights, creating an immersive and sustainable advertising experience where clean air meets captivating ads. And so then I thought, oh, and there's the image that captured it. Now, I did ask ChatGPT to tell me what the image would look like. And then I fed it into Midjourney, which we saw the IKEA, and I failed miserably. And it created this thing here, which I didn't like. And so I went with this ad here. But what's interesting is there was a conversation we had, and it actually explained to me that in the future, advertisers, they started to say that the scenario, and I'm just going to read this to you because it's mind-blowing what it says, is that it combines these three technologies to create immersive and personalized advertising experiences. Electric skin devices serve as interactive advertising platforms. Remember, this is 10 years from now, displaying visually captivating and contextually relevant ads directly on the skin of willing participants. The ads incorporate real-time data analysis, for all you metrics junkies, on Binford's Law to ensure maximum relevance and effectiveness. That's how we play. Then, moreover, the electric skin devices are powered by energy generated through algae air purification systems. This symbolic relationship allows advertisers to promote their products and services while contributing to a cleaner environment. It's just amazing. And all of this was brought together with this. It goes on, and I can put the chat in there so everybody can read it. It was quite interesting to see how it was. And before I did it, I primed it as well. I primed the chat GPT to tell me what the impact PRECOG and pattern recognition has on the future in general, and it really broke it down, and it gets it all kind of ready to go. And so this was the chat that I had with it, and we're coming to the end. So what I'm imploring everybody, do it yourself. Yeah, I've got a little do it yourself kit for you. We'll send out. You'll have your own little poster there. I'll give you the PRECOG report, so you have that, the one that we went through, and you can click on the articles and look at it. And then you'll be able to click and see that we have all the new futures of, and this is a silly thing, but it's fun, and it's great when I'm not there. It's much more fun when I'm in the room with you guys. And then you can see that idea copyright would be one, and then I'm going to remove it, and then I would spin and I would do another one, and I'd pick my three signals and bring them together, and then you guys can begin to kind of create your own futures and be preposterous with it. It's amazing, and it's a lot of fun. And so that is how we start to look at it. And obviously we scale it back over time, but that's how we start to look at prediction design. And that's what we did. We looked at all these different ways to connect all of this with your business. So the only thing, just to simplify it, remember three things, just to keep it easy: track trends, explore possibilities, and it's up to you. Design the future. Don't let it happen by accident. And with that, I think we're done. Bang on time. 10 minutes left, you want.
Fantastic, Jordan. Interesting stuff. So we have some questions coming in. I'll encourage anybody to use the Q&A window to put some questions forward from him, and we'll just dive into it. So it sounds like your main theme is we in this industry, in the advertising business, have to stimulate our brains with outside new ideas. And sometimes they might render a very specific idea, sometimes not. How do your clients typically work with you? What are they looking to accomplish? What are they getting out of these kinds of explorations?
Yeah, this can be used for lots of things. We can use these kind of things for kickoffs of a brief. There's a company called Vodafone that we work with, and it was amazing. They had one of those kind of dream budgets where we have £1 million left over at the Q4. What can we do? and we had these brainstorms using all these different trends and did the mashup, and it just came up with this amazing idea, which we just wouldn't have thought of if we were looking in the light. And so we use that for lots of different innovation scenarios, ideation. We have other techniques we use. I mean, the mashup is just one of them, and we have lots of them. And what it is to really kind of exercise the brain. There's one fun exercise I love to run, which is called Crazy Eights, which, because everybody, as soon as a brief drops, everybody has an idea. Yeah, and this exercise allows everybody to get out the idea and every single idea that they have until their brain is just dead. So it's a really good tool to use. And again, when we're working with teams, a lot of times we'll even invite clients in on some of these just to get them involved at different times, and it really grows client relationships as well. We don't do it on all of them, but at different moments when it's fantastic.
I'm glad you jumped to the brief first, because it's, when you look at this topic initially, you might think, well, this is super obvious for creative. Creative needs to come up with new and fresh thinking and whatever. But I love that your example was first a brief thing. Well, I'll bet a bunch of people on this call struggle with briefs. And so I'm curious, but going back to your experience as a creative person, what's your sense about briefs in general? Do they need to be more creative? Do they need to be more out of the box in how they ask things of creatives to deliver on?
Well, I mean, I would love for, we saw that thing on the brain scans where it reads the thoughts. I'd love to be able to put that on a client, because extracting a brief out of a client, what they really, really want is tough. And so it's to me, it's such an art form. And the success that we've had extracting client briefs have always had three people in the room. You have your client services account side, you have your strategy side, your planner, and you have a creative. And you have three different sets of ears that are hearing it differently from the client. And that's when we got the most informed briefs. And then the planner would write it up and everything. And it's being able to have the simplest brief. I mean, the things that we always would try to do is, just a one pager. You can have all the other extra information. The tendency is to overload it. And so I think it's so valuable to be able to do that. But then, by looking at all the cultural trends in the world too, it really, when you're taking the brief, it allows you to have conversations, different informed conversations with clients of what's out there. It allows you, when you're writing the brief, to just kind of understand different aspects and create those different bits of catalysts for inspiration too.
Yeah, well, and there's a dimension of that as well, which is probably very useful these days. That's the whole notion of collaboration. You mentioned it a couple of times. I think you said that, earlier on when you were talking about your career and working, that collaboration was always a key part of your process. Are things like this, these kinds of exercises, is that the kinds of stuff people should be doing to try to collaborate more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, a team is everything in collaboration. I hate missing a trick. I like to poke holes in everything, and I can't do that by myself. I need other people to poke holes in it too. And so whether it's coming up with a new idea or, like ripping the brief, we do a whole workshop on just really ripping the brief apart and interrogating it. And we do it through the lens of design thinking, which allows you, again, collaboration. It's a team effort. And so I think every aspect of the journey always benefits more from the team and how you can collaborate along the way. And like I said, a lot of times people forget to bring the clients in. Oh my God, if the clients feel that they're part of something, they feel like they own it as well, which is a very nice feeling. And it really kind of, I find it generates more business.
Yeah, well, thanks for mentioning that, because a lot of times we keep clients at arm's length, right? We take the brief, we do our work, and we, black box it until we're ready to thrill them with something. But clients probably are desperate to have a little more creativity and fun in their own lives. Marketing is a fun part of their business. So somebody else just asked, have agencies, in your experience, used this kinds of out-of-the-box thinking, this type of information, to change their agency positioning or identity?
Oh yeah. So there's been lots of them, because wow. Yes is the short answer. We've worked with different agencies on creating kind of a transformation, and so this would be one element of it, and it exposes you with the ideas. And we've done stuff where we can look something as simple as the mission, vision, and value, and how through like 2 days of workshops, 3 days of workshops, come up with what the DNA of your company is about, and then all the way to stuff where we've taken a 3 to 6 month journey working with the company on every single aspect, on how it's from the clients and what they feel about you, all the way to production, how that's handled, just the financial, all the operational aspects, and then all of the agency, the creative, the count, the strategy, how that all comes together. And again, along those ways, we will use different signals that we find in the world, because then we're really like tuned to what's next. And let's don't think of the future as just like our business plan for next year. And let's don't think of it as our business plan for 5 to 10 years. Let's really look at it. So when we go deep, we also look at all the risk factors out there too. Like we'll create gamification models. With the World Economic Forum has this thing called a risk report, which I didn't realize, which predicted the pandemic in 2015 and then stopped and never said another word. And so you have, not only do you have to, you don't look at the current risk report, you have to go back in time and say, what's been trending, what happened way back. And water crisis is something that's scaring me, because it's been bouncing on that report for a long time. So I think water is an interesting thing. But yes, long answer, short answer your question, yes, they use it. And yes, there's lots of ways we can utilize this.
Well, and you can also just adopting the process. Your process, like in the creation of that brief, was take 3 very crazy ideas. And so if you're working on positioning your agency, what are the 3 biggest outlying ideas that do relate to your agency, and then brainstorm from there, adopt that process. Because I thought that brief process was very interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you have different teams on it, then everybody comes back with their ideas and shares them. And yeah, it's a fun process.
Gotcha. When we ran that poll, I found the results were somewhat interesting, and they relate to the way you set up your whole approach, which is you never know what's going to be popular. I mean, before we put that poll in, we didn't know what people are going to pick, if they were all going to congeal around one idea. And it was amazing to me. We got one at the top of the heap that I'll have you speak to a little bit, and that's aging population. That was number 1. But 2, 3, and 4 were all tied. And so giving people 5 choices, you had 4 very strong candidates for what those top choices were. I guess reinforcing your notion that if you try to predetermine what people are going to be interested, you could be way wrong. You never know what it is that's going to trigger some money, that's going to trigger interest. And so that notion of keeping the net broad at the beginning makes sense. And I love that quote you used about that. You don't know whether you're going to use it in 6 minutes or 6 years, right? Yeah. It's just that constant populating of your brain. So on aging population specifically and where it's headed, you said, hey, it's going to have a lot of ramifications, obviously, for the ad industry. Any thoughts on that?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the thing is this was just one story, and these things keep popping up in different formats of ways that the population is gonna age and live longer, and wellness is at the heart of everything. And as we see everything transforming, we're really looking. I mean, lifespan is extending rapidly in the States, and it's just my thoughts are we have to design for that. We have to, the advertising world is going to be rich with business around all of it, and there are so many. I mean, I just showed you the stem cell one, but there are so many other articles and things and methodologies. And one report talked about how color, light, and sound, the way they did it in some kind of experiment on the brain, reduces the plaques in your brain, which gives you longevity and decreases the chance of Alzheimer's too. So it's all these different methods are happening out there, and to be aware of that, and then to be able to say, okay, as a business, wow, this could be an area that we want to focus on. let's create a growth group around this area and make sure that we
Well, in
have
fact,
some.
it's probably a mandate, right? For years and years, we've all been conscious of the aging of the population, the huge, pig in the python of the baby boomer generation as it's moving through the system. But
Yeah,
what I thought was fascinating about that article you pulled up was the 20-year notion.
yeah,
That we may not just be looking at this blip in time of this blob of the population, but that if people are living 5 and 10 and 15 years longer, and the agency world seems to be desperately behind on that. With the
hmm,
exception of pharmaceuticals, who's doing stuff that really does a great job of targeting older or aging consumers?
yeah. And there's so much out there. I mean, it's almost like your Terminator and cyborgs and all. I mean, all this stuff is happening. My dad has a pacemaker in his heart that's run by an app, from someone in Kansas City that, even though now he lives in Arizona, I mean, they've got it switched over since then. Then you've got people with, different knees that are, almost bionic now. You have so much hearing aids, are just insane now how that works. And this technology is just making for a much richer life. And so we've got something that's going on now. And they said, there's going to be someone that's already born that's going to be 150 years old. So yeah, look out. There's a whole industry there. But I also like to say you got to balance it too. You don't put all your money there. Okay, let's see what this Gen Z or Alpha or whatever it is too. This is interesting. There's lots of things going on there that we have to be aware of too. So it's and I'm curious, what was the last place one there, Jeff, in the poll?
The one about the debt and this swiping
So
mechanism.
I think and a lot of times I'll make myself look at what came in last and why. And it's funny, I run this one, debt. I mean, who hasn't had debt at some point in their life, And it's actually, do you like debt? So that's so, yeah. And as a business, do you like debt? And it's interesting. I ran this data-driven decision-making course, and we asked all these questions, and the one that always bottomed out on data was ethics.
Yeah.
And it's like, then we explain. So you're fine, that your phone actually is listening to you even when it says it's not, and that your Alexa is, and that your cameras can be on at different times, even though the green light isn't on, they can be on, and that all these privacy issues and what the terms and conditions say, and all this different stuff, and the fact that you can be outside and there's cameras everywhere, there's all, and now with deep fake and with everything that's going on, your identity can be, really, distorted in many different ways. And so, and then what's the ethical implications on, Facebook using my face in an ad and I'm not getting paid? And that brings us back to Andy Warhol and the fact that there's a Supreme Court case about that. But Facebook said in their terms and conditions that, no, you said yes, you clicked, and we can use your face for advertising. So it is funny what the last thing is, ethics. Everybody wanted to know all about data metrics, but ethics was at the bottom. And it's like national debt too. It's like you gotta, get curious with every aspect of it.
Well, and what's interesting is that particular example was more about the technology of swipe left, swipe right, which you said, hey, maybe there's a way of adapting that to the way we get people to feed in. But then
Yeah,
the subject matter itself has relevance, which was just the example they chose to use was about the national debt.
yeah,
That as advertisers, we're going to have a consumer audience that's far more debt sensitive than a whole generation, right?
yeah.
For 30 years, we had interest rates at 0, 1, 2%, and no one gave a thought to that kind of stuff. And now going forward, at least for the next 5, 10 years, that's going to be ever present. And so we as advertisers, how do we address a consumer that's much more price sensitive, much more concerned about piling on debt? That has to have some ramifications for positioning and strategy and all of it.
Yeah, and you're right. And you know what you were saying too about the swipe left and right too. I mean, I was just thinking, we were talking about the brief earlier. What if there was a series of questions too that you just gave the client where they could just really, questions that just really make things easier for them. There's
Yeah.
just so many ways just thinking about all of these things. Yeah.
Well, and building on that, maybe it allows you to stimulate a little more creative response from your clients. Like you said earlier, our clients are more of that thing, ask me what I want a faster horse.
Yeah, exactly.
And but rather than getting frustrated with clients, be more creative in the questions we ask them, right?
Yeah.
Even if you get yes, no responses back, you can help open them up by giving them more interesting stimulus to work with.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's about it. Fantastic chat. We're 5, 6, 7 minutes over. So appreciate you hanging on the line, Jordan. Bob, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Jordan, you've given us plenty to think about, that's for sure. We thank you. We thank everyone for tuning in. Our next webinar, July 18th, titled Creating Killer Decks, Telling Compelling Stories with Agency Data. It should be a good one. Information all on the High Bar Training website. Again, thank you for tuning in. Jordan, thank you. We really appreciate it. And we will be sending out the material afterwards that you had mentioned during the webinar. So I will take care of that.
Well, that's
Thanks,
great.
everyone. Take care.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.